So basically a lot of that game cut off. So we're like, hey, let's just restart it. We only saw the first couple minutes anyway. So here we go again. Bottom left, we have Acer.Nerchio, our blue Zerg player, the ace of Acer, leading things off here in game one. And his opponent, a relatively, well, quote-unquote unknown Terran player from TSL. His name is Center. It says Shine right there, but Center is just using Shine's account.
Yes.
We did a little bit of research on Center. We found out that he's played in some of the ESV Korean weeklies, as a lot of kind of up-and-coming Korean players often do. Is versus Zerg record. There's only 4 games recorded, so it doesn't really tell us a whole lot. And he is 50% there. He lost Slayer's Koka, but he did beat Death Angel. So that's kind of where we are for that.
Koka is certainly one of the best Zerg players in the world, though.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's
very
you know, so it's certainly a little bit different task there. But the map is Cloud Kingdom, kind of a cool setting for TVZ to start things off, and I'll be curious to see what Nerchio ends up doing. We saw he had a tendency to pick this map. He was actually going ahead and willingly picking this map in Team League before. In fact, in the last round, as a matter of fact, against Empire. So we'll see what he ends up doing here in a bit. Center, on the other hand, I love the fact that TSL, teams like that, are throwing in newer players at the beginning. It makes, you know, gives them a little bit more exposure, puts them into high-pressure situations, and this is about the highest pressure of all. Nerchio, of course, a guy who won Home Story Cup over the weekend, 4-1 I'm Younghwa in the finals, went through a field that included players like I'm MVP and SKMC. So this guy is certainly a top test for Center.
Yeah, but now imagine the possibility of Center knocking out Nerchio in game one. You know, where does that leave Acer as a team? They've got a lot of other good Zerg players, and they've got Dark Hydra, who is ironically a Terran player. He kind of snuck his way in there. But, you know, they've got other players, but to lose your ace to a new player on the opposite team, that would be a rough situation, sort of morale-wise, for Acer. So Nerchio is definitely under some pressure, too. I mean, I've talked to a lot of pro players that worry, you know, they worry more about playing against people like this because they haven't really had the experience against them. They don't know their styles. They don't know what to expect. So actually kind of a higher pressure situation for both of these players, ironically, in game one.
All right, well, Center going to get a pretty good look at his opponent's base. Nerchio not doing anything too out of the ordinary. I mean, decided to take Hatch first, then pooled after that. Taking his gas, though, so he is going to work up to Zergling speed here, not going for anything like that 4 queen, no gas build that's been pretty popular with Zerg players lately.
Yep, that's right. And the 4 queen has kind of turned into 6 queen these days, it seems like. I was even talking to Dongregu over the weekend at Hot Import Nights, and I asked him, I'm like, all right, what do you think, 4 queen or 6 queen? And he's like, 6 queen. So there you go. There it is. There you go. I don't know what else to add to that. DRG
it's
says
Dongregu. If he says it's so, then it's so. I mean, like, what else do you do? Like, no, Dongregu, I don't think. And then he just stares at you, and your soul melts, and you're like, yes, Dongregu. I'm sorry, Dongregu.
I was like, no, Dongregu, you're wrong. 4 queen is so better, obviously. Jeez, DRG, I thought you were good at Zerg. That's what. And then he was like, oh, you're right, though. I'm sorry. No, actually. So DRG says that 6 queen is better. I would be inclined to agree. I mean, 2 more queens is only 300 more minerals. It allows you to take your 3rd very quickly and very safely. It keeps you safe against Banshees, keeps you safe against Hellions. It's just really, really safe, but yet also aggressive in that you can really, really push the creep. Again, you know, take your 3rd quickly. So yeah, that 6 queen build is definitely kind of the way to go in ZVT in Korea right now. But in the rest of the world, in the West, in Europe, in America, we don't really see that many Zerg players adopting that quite yet.
And looks like Nerchio actually going to go over to a 2nd gas now on 2 base. He has not gone for his 3rd hatchery quite yet, nor is he just taking a very quick 4 gas and trying to press towards layer right away. So I'll be curious to see what his strategy is from here on out. Starport coming up for Shine now as he does move over to Reactored Hellions. And yeah, Tech Lab already being started on the barracks. We'll probably see some Banshees here in just a bit.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me one bit. I mean, Polt, his teammate, is known for doing this opening. In fact, Wolf in the GSL even calls this opening the Polt build now. And so it's not surprising at all that you would see Center, you know, who's probably learning a few things from Polt. I mean, Polt is a GSL champion. It's not too shocking at all to see him kind of adopt his opening, and I really do like this opening. I've said it before that I feel like this is my favorite opening right now in TVZ. going Hellion Banshee really lets you put a lot of counter pressure on the Zergs. It's kind of tailored to deal with, more queens than the average Zerg has. So given the fact that Nerchio has, a more normal amount, a little bit lower amount of queens, this could end up doing some real damage if he's not careful about his micro.
Yeah, and Nerchio is going up to 4 gas, as we can see, with a Roach Horn and 1-1, but going for melee upgrades at the moment. So double evolution chamber, Roach Horn off of 2 base, and Center does have a few Hellions up at the front, but it's going to be difficult to try and break through against 2 queens and a spine crawler.
Yeah, he's going to have to wait for those Banshees to come out. Look like it is going to be the uncloaked variety for our Terran player. Oh, he does manage to sneak past, but was this a mistake? He does manage to funnel up all the Zerglings and take out quite a few, but he's down to just 2 Hellions. Yeah, not really able to do any damage to the mineral line. So that, I think, was a little bit of an over-eager move from TSL.Center. All he really needed to do was wait until that Banshee got there, and he could have started kind of zoning units out, kind of pushing things around how he wanted. And as it is now, he's going to have a little bit harder time doing damage than he would have otherwise.
3rd Command Center coming up along with two engineering base.
Yep.
So he is going to prioritize those bio upgrades as we move forward here. Stimpak well on the way, as we can see as well. Banshee going to try and make its way in and do some damage. There's already a Spore Crawler coming up for defense, but of course this is going to be of the uncloaked variety, so this Banshee will just sit in there, tank a little bit of damage from the queens, take its worker kills, and move out.
Yep, that's about right. And I mean, this is so cool. Even going for that 3rd Command Center really quickly is Center. And this actually reminds me so much of when SC was back on FXO and he was SC Foyu. And there was another Terran player that was sort of his understudy. And basically, when you would watch him play, he would just copy everything that SC did. And that player was known as Gumiho. You may have heard of him. He ended up being the Tall Terran, a very, very good TVZer as well. So it's really cool to actually see Center play in kind of almost the exact same style that Polt does in TVZ right now. And what'll be cool in the future then is to watch Center and see how he kind of makes his own adaptations out of what Polt does and see how he kind of changes things.
Interesting. And Nerchio kind of doing something we saw over the weekend Home Story Cup a few times as well. I mean, rushing towards very, very high tech.
Yeah.
10 minutes here. Pretty soon he'll be able to move up to Hive if he wants, but just concentrating on getting those 2 bases and tech in place really before anything else. He has a few roaches to stay safe, but he's just droning up behind this.
Yeah, and I like what Center's doing too here. I keep going back to what he's doing, but it's so cool, and you've got Nerchio covered so well with your casting. Oh, the Banshee is going to get taken out, though. What Center was doing is he was going in, taking some queen shots, but then bringing the Banshee back before it died, repairing it mid-map, and then sending it back really fast. That's such a great little trick that Terran players can do that I wish more of them would adopt, just because you can get a lot more mileage out of your Banshees that way without investing in Cloak. But as it is right now, I think with all those roaches out and with the queens kind of locking down the bases, the time for Banshee harass is more or less over at this point. And Center's going to go ahead and try to take a 3rd, get his normal tech going. So we do see the double upgrades, we see the tanks starting to be produced, and he does actually have the armory timed out pretty nicely to start +2/+2 as well. So Center will be keeping up. Oh, that poor tank.
Yep.
He was trapped.
Has to break his way out through the reactor, but that's radioactive, so that's no good.
That's right.
As we can see, though, Center... Oh, wow! Unfortunately, getting a few units caught in the middle of the map. I was going to say he's taking a 3rd, clearing that up with a few units, but loses quite a bit to those Zerglings. Oh, and Nerchio almost breaks his way through. He does have a few roaches to try and stop this 3rd once again, though, or at least he's going to draw some units away.
Yeah, and you know what? There's no siege mode quite yet for TSL.Center. Nerchio doesn't know that, but if he did, I think we'd see him try to break through this wall a little bit harder. That's exactly what he's going to do now. There is a tank there that'll do plenty of damage to roaches. Oh, but there's the hole. And how many Zerglings are going to stream through?
It looks like they're all sitting over underneath the 3rd for now. Yeah. There's a decent little force coming out for Center, but unfortunately it runs smack dab into a bunch of infestors. One of those infestors headbutting. That doesn't work too well, but really. The rest of the ones will survive.
Yep, that's right. Nerchio holds off that little push from Center pretty easily here, and Center still is not able to take his 3rd base. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I feel like he could have used those Hellions to kind of chase away the Zerglings, or at least draw them off long enough to put that command center down. But as it is, there we go. Now they do run away. And so Center will finally be able to take his third base. But he's been really, really delayed here. Nerchio's done a really good job of going up to 4 bases while keeping his opponent on 2 all game long so far. So not a bad start at all for our Acer Zerg player.
Yep, and Nerchio moving up to that hive, has a Spire on the way. I don't know if that's Spire 1 or 2. I think it's just 1. But he will be able to move into Broodlords. Not with an immense amount of upgrades, but at least it will be quite effective. Well, and he's going to be sitting on 5 hatcheries in a second as well.
What Nerchio's doing kind of reminds me a little bit of what Stefano was doing for a long time in ZVT. Now, Stefano rushed it a little bit quicker than Nerchio is, and he didn't quite take as many bases. But just the idea of getting some defensive roaches out early on while going for upgrades and very, very quick brood lords, that is something that Stefano kind of was known for in ZVT for a while. He usually didn't do it on quite as many bases, which is why it ended up being a little bit quicker, but it's cool to see, and this is something that you didn't see a lot from Stefano, some hidden infestor tricks here.
Yeah, this is like the perfect time to send him through as we see missile turrets up at the front to protect against just this sort of thing. So, unfortunately for Center, this could do some very real damage in a second. Looks like Viking is running around and picking off some overlords, but we're just waiting for these infestors to go off.
Yeah, man, they've got to do something. I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to pop out in Fungal. Otherwise, you can always use Infested Terrans as well. Maybe kill the CC if you're lucky. That drop not doing a whole lot right now. And what are those Infestors doing?
I think they're just delaying for Center to eventually move out or something like that. So the Infested Terrans can actually sit in there and maybe DPS down in Orbital Command.
Certainly could be. That's definitely a possibility as well. And he gets his wish because there goes Center. So those Infestors immediately popping out some Infested Terrans before the tanks can react, and that is going to be a decent amount of dead SCVs here. Whoa, Center not reacting because he's also got Zerglings in his other mineral line. Great two-pronged attack here from Nerchio.
Yeah, this is working out really, really well. In fact, almost as successful as that could have been. 20 workers in total were killed. Looks like he's about to get dropped at the same time as Center moves across the map, though. So drop inside of the main. Looks like it will be able to pick up on Greater Spire. However, Nerchio should be able to react to that now that he knows he's under fire. Yes, he's making his way back right now. One good fungal growth will pin everything down, and it does.
Yep, that's going to be about it for that drop. We'll see if he decides to kill the Medivac off or not, but look at that. Infestors in the main base, too, doing more harassment. 28 workers killed by Nerchio. Not bad. He will be losing his 4th base, but he has already taken another 4th base in the upper left part of the map, so he's going to be just fine as far as trading this goes. He's still a base ahead of his opponent, so he's still in pretty good shape, and that is a lot of very upgraded Zerglings. Those guys are about to be 3-3.
Yes, they are. They do not have Adrenal Glands, though, so not attacking, not as high DPS as they can be, but eventually he will add that on. 6 Broodlords are morphing in, though, and still these Infestors just continue to do damage.
Yeah, and it looks like he was using the scroll wheel trick from what I could tell, too, the way those Infestors kind of popped out. There is 2 Marines and a Marauder there to help defend, but Nerchio, once this 3-3 kicks in, he's going to really be able to put the hurt on Center's army, and Center looks a little bit off-center, actually. He doesn't really know, I think, what to do. I'm seeing a lot of hesitancy in his army movements. He's going down with his entire army to check that bottom right base. That's a little bit risky. You open yourself up to counterattacks such as this one.
But here's what I'll give Center. His macro has been very, very good. I mean, he's constantly kept up, on his production. He's been maxed. While his unit control may not have been the best so far in this game, his macro is pretty ridiculous, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, again, just another way that he's kind of taking after Polt, I think, is that Polt's definitely one of those players that builds all his production buildings early. Oh, but he is trapped. And will Nerchio decide to engage here? It can be a little bit different, but I think with those Broodlords, he's going to be able to just kind of slow push into it. And he's probably going to just kill this army.
Yeah, he is. The rest of the Sea Shanks went down. The Marines get fungled out. There are a couple of units around the left-hand side, but one good fungal growth actually takes out both of those Medivacs.
Yeah, it certainly could. And, that's a lot of Marines. You don't want to run into that if you are a Zergling. And so Center trying to do the damage that he can, and it looks like he will be able to possibly pick off this hatchery. We'll see Nerchio responding with some Zerglings as well, but nope, no way to save that hatchery now. It does go down. Some Marines are picked up there. They might be able to pick off a Corruptor or 2. And look at this, another attack from Center at this space, and suddenly Nerchio, despite losing these units here, is a little bit down on bases.
Yeah, he's going to be down on, well, I mean, I guess I should say he's
down from where he was.
Right, down from where he was. When this one finishes up, he'll still be one base up on his opponent altogether. But Center really doesn't have a lot of mining going on. He needs to establish himself a fourth base ASAP and may not have the ability to do that.
Yeah, it's really tough on this map to take a fourth against Zerg with the situation that Nerchio has Center in. He's got a very, very mobile group of very powerful Zerglings. It's just really, really easy unless, you know, Center kind of dedicates his whole army to defending that fourth base for Nerchio to come in and do a very effective counterattack. So Center, while I think he definitely should try to expand, is going to have to expand with the knowledge that he's just going to have to sit back and play a very passive game from here on out just to kind of stay alive. There's no other way he'll be able to get out a fourth base unless he's willing to, you know, put the time and effort into defending it.
There's a ton of anti-air up here for Center, but he doesn't have a lot to defend. These Spielings on the ground, and he can't even siege up these tanks yet because he'll just splash damage his own units. The Viking count is starting to tear through a few of the Broodlords, and it looks like they've dispatched the Corruptors pretty efficiently. The Infestors are going to have to do the rest of the work, but the Zerglings have cleaned up everything on the ground.
Yep, that's right. Just 2 Vikings left now for Center, causing some trouble for those Broodlords, and he's just going to go ahead and keep pushing just fine. He's still got some Infestors. Could maybe throw down another Fungal if he has the energy. But yeah, those Marines on the top of the ramp are going to push Nerchio back just a little bit. We'll have to see how he responds because he just lost another Broodlord. He's actually been whittled away quite nicely by these Vikings from Center.
All right, well, Center is killing the rest of the Broodlords, as you mentioned, but there's still not enough for a fungal growth. But Nerchio now inside of his opponent's natural, running up to the main here in a second. The supply depots are lifted, though, and it looks like Center is going to be able to hold the top, but oh, that's so many Marines fungaled.
Yeah, that's a big group of damage taken away from Center here by those Infestors. And he always can burrow, too, and kind of force a scan if he needs to. He's going to use Infested Terrans instead and try to just walk past. So losing an Infestor or 2 there. But will he be able to kill a Thor? That would be a nice pickup, too.
Oh, yeah, especially because it looks like he's going to just outright max on Ultras here in just a second. He has a ton of resources banked up, and it looks like that's what he intends to use it for. He's throwing in units right now just to make sure that his opponent kind of can't build a critical mass once again, and Center is taking significant damage from this, but there we go. 5 Ultras popping up, and as soon as there's a little bit additional larvae, we'll probably see a bunch more.
Yeah, with this situation in a ZVT, Center, or Nerchio rather, is just going to want to try to trade efficiently, and man, there is no more efficient trade than trading energy for actual units and structures. That's about as cheap as it gets. It's a good deal for Zerg, so Nerchio definitely going to kind of keep relying on those Infestors, I think, at this point, just to kind of keep the army size down for TSL.Center. He can include some other units too, you know, like Zerglings are very, you know, cheap and everything. But I think what we're going to see is him wait now for that one big attack, and that's when he's going to dedicate everything, you know, when he thinks he can just basically bowl right over Center.
Yeah, there are only 28 workers, 38 workers out for Center at the moment, so he's way down on economy. He hasn't even touched a fourth base yet. He's trying to float out an orbital command now, but obviously that's not going to be a planetary, and there's a ton of forces out for Nerchio, and he's going to have an extremely difficult time just trying to hold on to it.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it this way, you're kind of expanding towards your opponent's fourth base, which is never something you want to do in ZVT. Attack up the ramp from Nerchio. Can he break through? Good fungals on those Marines, but they still have a lot of damage. But I think Nerchio's just got way too much right now.
Oh, yeah, he does. Center going to try and defend with all his might, but it's not going to be enough. The Ultras making their way in, cleaning up the siege tanks as well. He's trying to pull up the ramp here. Unfortunately, Center does not have those supply depots raised, so the Zerglings should just be able to walk on up. And I think that's going to be about it for TSL.Center.
Yeah, it's looking pretty bad for our TSL Terran player right now. Just kind of waiting on the GG because it looks like Acer.Nerchio should win this handily. He's got his opponent basically down to 1 base right now. That base isn't even mining. GG. That is it.
And Acer takes game number 1 in this best of 9, throwing in their